The words of Confucius more than 2,000 years ago continue to ring true in the work of a dedicated group of teachers of the Living History Education Foundation.
We now have a very significant number of trained teachers in living history. And from that pool, we also have a number of master teachers who have been writing their own living history courses. And we have a number of depots of supplies that teachers draw on so they can do the programming with their students.
The mission of the Living History Education Foundation is to assist teachers in making their students a part of history. The Living History Education Foundation underwrites courses that immerse educators in authentic learning at historic sites.
We're very patriotic. We feel very strongly about teaching kids the American pride and the struggles that have gone on in America. And to understand who you are today, you have to know where you've been in the past. We want kids to understand how America got to be the way we are and why we are different than so many other countries.
In studying the growth of our nation, educators travel to locations such as Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Donning the garb of a Union or Confederate soldier, teachers step into the souls of those long gone.
And you march the full length of Pickett's charge with a musket, full gear, and you get the feeling of it. You go over the fences, you cross the roads, you go down into the swales, and you get closer to those cannons and closer, and all of a sudden those little cannons that look about this big, now you're looking down the muzzle, changes the perspective of the whole event.
Teachers trained in living history return to classrooms and lift text out onto the fields in school-wide Revolutionary War encampments and colonial days, after-school bicycle programs on historic trails, and 19th century baseball games.
When I teach American history, we don't want to just focus on war and battles, that there's other elements of culture and that we're proud of. Baseball often mirrors what was going on in society at that time. The students will go in the winter months into the library, into the computer lab and research, and then have to present using technology to form an essay. It's great to have technology, but it's also important to have real human interaction, and this is a great way for students to have that interaction and cooperation.
Living history programs thrive all across New York State, engaging students in living museum exhibits and community service projects.
They set up their own camps, they prepare their food, build benches, lanterns. It's just a wonderful experience.
Children live American history and develop concepts of freedom, independence, and pride.
They also have a hard time understanding why everything was not equal in the past. And I think that makes them work more today to have equality.
We do our overnight encampment at Fort Ticonderoga. We have the kids in full period dress with overalls, waistcoats, hunting frocks, tricorn hats, muskets, haversacks, cartridge boxes, canteens. By being able to do history yourself is such a better way to understand what it really meant. You can read about sleeping in an 18th century tent. They did it. You can read about parading in Fort Ticonderoga and using von Steuben's drill manual, but they've done it. So I think that that's really the most rewarding thing, is to see them enjoy history as opposed to just struggling through it.
In the beginning, you're a little reluctant to go out there, dressed up a little bit differently. When you walk into the school and people look at you a little strange that first day you're wearing a uniform, but then you overcome it and you realize that this is the way that history should be taught, that you have to experience a little bit of uncertainty and a bit of risk-taking in order to show that to your students.
Teachers get a visceral reaction and it stays with them and they bring it to the classroom. But what is more important, we're finding more and more of teachers are buying into the idea that if it works for me, it will work for my students.
This year I was out wood collecting at the encampment with a bunch of kids, and a little girl pulled me aside, and she had, her wood, and she said, "Mrs. Watson, I want to tell you something." And I said, "What do you want to tell me?" And she said, "I get it." And I said, "You get it? What do you mean you get it?" She said, "I get why you're having us do this. I get it now. I get what it was like to be a soldier. I get that it was hard, and I understand what it was that you were trying to teach us about history." That's when you know that, that you've been successful at what you've done.
Not just learning history, living history.